Alright, so that's what you might hear if you have a bad CV joint. So we're going to go ahead and swap both of these axles. Let's get started with that. Alright, so we're changing out the rear axle on this 2003 Polaris Sportsman. I got these axles on eBay for around $110 or so. It's the XTA series. They do have the XT series for around 80 bucks, I think. So I've got the vehicle up off the ground with a jack, but then I also like to use a come-along to support the weight because I've had them slip off the jack before. Alright, we're going to remove this wheel. 9/16 inch is what we need to start. Alright, and we have a helper here today, Connor. He thinks he's helping. And you're going to want to have a pan or something to put all of your nuts and bolts in. Alright, we're going to remove the nut off this bolt here. It's a 9/16. And I do have a fan going. Hopefully that noise isn't too annoying. Alright, you might just want to put the nut on there just so you know which goes with which. Alright, next we're going to remove these bolts here. And these are 5/8. And one on the other side here. Alright, I almost forgot about the axle nut here. You're going to want to pry that off and remove this cotter pin. Let me grab some needle nose. And I always try to get these off in one piece, but the new axle came with a new castle nut and a cotter pin, but these are the kind of things I like having in the toolbox because sometimes you do break them. What you can do is take just a screwdriver and a hammer and tap it out after straightening it. That's a keeper. Alright, now this castle nut should be torqued to 100 foot-pounds. In the past I've worked on it and I don't always torque it, but because of the bearing carrier and the potential for wearing out a bearing, I'm starting to give those torque specs. Let's see if it's 100 foot-pounds. Let me grab, I think that's 1 1/8. Alright, so it is 1 1/8, and you can use a pipe for added leverage if you want. Now, if you had another person here, if you're tricky, you can actually hold on to the brake. Oh, and that was not 100 foot-pounds, so I'm going to torque it down when we put it back together here. It came off really easily. Alright, so this bearing carrier is essentially free, but we need to remove the bushings from the side here. Let me move the camera so you get a better shot at how this works. Alright, again, hopefully that fan's not too annoying. So basically you've got these rubber bushings. You want to try to get them out one piece. Otherwise you're buying those too. That was not too bad. And then you've got these inserts like that, and you've got the same on the other side. Now once I remove the other side, this will be free. So let me move the camera here. That other rubber bushing was pretty well cracked, so I probably will replace that, although I will put it back together today with the original. I like to grease them up, but you can see this one's got some cracks in it. And we want to remove that metal insert. I'm just going to support this because once we pull that out, it's basically free. And you can take a hammer or something and tap on the axle, especially if you're replacing the axle. If you're just doing this for the boot, you may not want to do that because you don't want to damage the threads. So on the other side, you'll likely have the disc and the caliper, so you'd want to set that on something so you're not just hanging it off the brake lines. Okay, so that's free. Alright, so in the past I've actually replaced the CV boot and I've removed this shaft just like this, but over doing it a couple times, what I've found is it's definitely easier to have this out of the way, this assembly here. So what I'm going to do is remove this 9/16 inch bolt here, which threads into this. So I'm just going to use a crescent wrench and a ratchet to hold this, just to make the job easier. You know, it's one of those things where you try to save time sometimes and you end up spending more time because you could have gotten something out of the way that's preventing the job from going. It really all depends on how easily the shaft comes out. Now I just did the other side and it came right out, so here's hoping. Alright, so pay attention to what you've got here. You've got two rubber bushings and a metal flat washer. I'm just going to put them back on there, and then when it's time to put them back, we'll take a look at this. But you can see by the bottom of the bushings sort of which way they went, and also by the way that they're compressed. So these have spun a little bit, I can tell that. Alright, now again, this may not be entirely necessary. People can rag me out in the comment section if they want. Alright, so what I'm going to do here, I've done it a few times, and I've found that getting this out of the way makes life a little easier, because then I'm just going to bungee this other arm right up out of the way. So these are 1/2 inch, not in the bolt. Alright, and that slides right off, just like that. And I'm just going to put that nut on there, even though it's the only 1/2 inch one we've got. That way they're together. Alright, let me move my crescent wrench here. What I'm going to do is take a bungee cord. You can use a piece of wire, a piece of rope. I usually use whatever I happen to have laying around, and this time it happens to be a bungee cord. And I'm just going to set that right up out of the way. Now we have a straight on shot. So let's talk about the removal here. Sometimes they fight you and sometimes they don't. This is aluminum back here, so if you're going to pry with a screwdriver or pry bar or anything, the other thing is you don't have a lot of room to get straight on. You want to be very careful, so a couple of flat screwdrivers might help get it moving. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to try the quick jerk technique, and I'm going to move the camera so in case it does bust loose I don't break the camera. So let me slide the camera off to the side here. Wipe that shaft off. Okay, I'm just going to grab a hold of it here. I'm going to push in on it, and then I'm going to give it a quick jerk. That's it. Wasn't too bad at all. So let's take a look. What you've got here is a compression ring, and in on those spline gears is somewhat tapered. So basically what's happening is as you pull it out, that taper is forcing this ring in, and there's grease and rust and all kinds of different things that can prevent that from compressing properly. But I would say that was a clean pull there. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this cleaned up back here. I'll zoom in on it so you can get a better look at it. Okay, so I'm just going to use some carburetor cleaner. I know people give me crap for using carburetor cleaner and brake cleaner and different things, and you know, I guess you could use a degreaser. That's what you'd use here. What we're going to do also while we have it, it's a great opportunity. You can see the seal is not leaking, but I'm not going to go through all of this and then go out on my first ride and then find out that because of the motion or something that the seal leaks. So we're going to replace this seal here next. I didn't have my seal puller for the other side. I don't know if I'm going to post that video on one of my other channels or not, but I bought a cheap seal puller and I'm not real convinced that it's going to do a great job with this seal, but let's give it a try here. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is just break away some of this seal with a pick. This is the tool I used yesterday to get it out, and what I'm afraid of is this 90-degree pick. If it were to break, that metal would fall down into the gear case and You know, then what do? Drain the fluid and hope it falls out. Alright. Funny thing is, I had a nice seal puller, and I use them so infrequently that, you know, it's one of those tools, like I know I have, but where is it? And I'll probably find it tomorrow. And with this job, you can't really get in anywhere to get a good grip on it, so that's a problem. This seal puller is bending. Alright, so when I said I bought a cheap one, I wasn't lying. This thing is a piece of crap. I think it came from Advanced Auto. So I'll be sure to, lifetime guarantee, bring it back and tell them I don't want another one. I don't know if you can even see that or not, but that is underneath the lip of it. There it goes. Oh. Yeah, it's gonna pop right out here in a minute. There it is. Alright, so if you had a good seal puller, it wouldn't be that much of a job, but I would not buy one at Advanced Auto. Okay, I'm just gonna clean up all around here and apply a little bit of grease on the new seal. That's what we did to the seal to get it out. Not too bad, I guess, but could have been easier. Alright, let's put the new one in here. Alright, so these are, I don't know, $14 on eBay. That's an actual Polaris part. Maybe you could get, you know, an aftermarket for a little less, but 3233878, that's the number. Polaris Industries. Alright, you can actually see there's already a little bit of grease on the inside there. The other one I installed didn't have quite as much. I don't have a socket or any kind of a driver that's this large with a hollowed out center. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to place it by hand and try to force it in as far as possible, as straight as possible. I'm going to take the wooden handle, the back end of a wire brush, and gently tap. If you go too much, the other side's going to kick out. You know, one of those deals. Like that. Alright, that's why you need it as straight as possible. Get some of that extra grease off there. And let's give it another couple taps here. And just kind of feel around, see if it's raised up. It's raised on this side a little bit, just a hair. Want it in there as straight as possible, obviously. You could use a wooden dowel, something like that. You don't have to use a wire brush. What I happen to have around. Alright, looks good to me. Let me grab the new axle, we'll pop that in place and put it back together. Alright, so I've got a little bit of grease on there. I know some people use sort of an anti-seize grease. The other thing I try to do is position that ring so it's not pushed forward or pushed back or one side. I try to kind of center it because the idea is that it needs to compress. So this ring right here. Alright, let me wipe the grease off my fingers. Alright, you need to get it on there, line up the splines. You can feel that. Okay, and then just kind of try to shove it in there. The whole wheel is moving here, that's why I hang it. Keep the camera off to the side just a little bit here. That's it. That's in. Now what I like to do is give a couple tugs on it, okay? This assembly can also come out of this grease cup. That's a different kind of ring, it expands. I do have a video on how to change these CV boots. I can link to that right here. But I've had that not be in all the way before upon reassembly, and I only found out afterwards when it came out. So give it a couple tugs, make sure it's in there, and it is. It's in there good. Let's put it back together. Alright, so I'm just going to start by removing the nut and cotter pin here that came on the new CV shaft. Just feeling the bearing, the rear wheel bearing. That's going to need to be replaced. It's a good chance to inspect all of these things. If you take your bearing carrier and your hub, and there's a little bit of slop there. So I've done the front bearings on this wheeler, and I guess it looks like I'll be doing the back ones. I'll do a video when that time comes. Alright. And you need to line up the splines here. Alright, move the camera here. You're out of view. Alright. So what I like to do is clean these up real well. I'm just going to spray them off. And then I apply just a little bit of grease. To the rubber bushes. Now with these you can tell which way they go by the grooves. You can tell which way they were sitting. For example, that was sitting on the inside. It only sits into the bearing carrier just a little bit. And there are rubber bushings in here, so I'm just going to dab a little bit of grease around the inside of that. And on the other side here. Okay. Just like that. I'm going to keep the CV boots from the old axle because they're not that old. Oops, wrong way. It really doesn't matter which way they go. I can just tell which way they came out by the grooves. Alright, so these bushings here, they're okay, but I'll be replacing them. I'll probably do that when I do the bearing. And there's just slide in like that, because that just provides a pivot, and the grease probably doesn't do a whole lot aside from peace of mind for me, and I suppose it may actually help with the squeaks. I'm gonna spray that one off. So hopefully this video's been helpful. I haven't done too much to this four-wheeler in a while. Alright, these were the 5/8" bolts with the large washers. Let me grab those and the ratchet. Alright, I'm going to leave those relatively loose right now. You don't crank them down anyways because that does need to pivot. Alright, so on this one here, remember it's the large bolt with the two bushings and a flat washer underneath. You can tell which way the bushings go by the underside of them. So this one actually would set like that. But what I'm going to do is actually get it on there, and then I'll get the bushings in place just as before I tighten it down. So okay, so now we have this bolt here, 9/16. And then that's a 9/16 as well. lock nut, so you're only going to be able to thread it on by hand so far. And remember, these all have to pivot, so you don't want to crank them down. I do have the manual and the torque specs, but I typically don't use them. Alright, so basically what I do is I snug it up and back it off a hair. Alright, because they're lock nuts anyways on there. So, alright, I need to do the same with these side bolts here. I left them somewhat loose so that we could pivot that hub assembly. Alright, we have all of this together now, just where it needs to be. We basically have the castle nut, and I am going to torque that down. It's 100 foot-pounds. I do catch crap on some of my other videos because I don't actually torque things down, or I don't give the torque specs. Oops. Someone was going to give me shit about that because I didn't use my washer. Now the new one came with one washer. The old ones had two, so I'm just going to use a new one in the old one. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is torque this down. Let me grab my torque wrench. Alright, so this is just a cheap torque wrench from Harbor Freight. Plus or minus 5%, so on 100 pounds we're talking about a 5 pound difference in either direction, right? So it could end up 105, it could end up 95. What I'm going to do is try to hit the brake with my other hand here. Hold on. Alright, that's it. I'm going to dial it back just a hair because I can't get the cotter pin. Oh, I can right there on the side. So hopefully this video has been helpful. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. Put the wheel back on. Take it for a test drive. Leave those questions and comments below if you're doing this job. Just take your time. It doesn't require a lot of tools. I think the most difficult part of this one today was the seal. If you found it helpful, I always appreciate when people give me those thumbs ups. Helps my channel, helps me keep going. And if you want to see more of this type of thing and you're not already a subscriber, I do appreciate it when people subscribe also. So thanks for watching. Again, leave those questions and comments below, and have fun. Get out there and tear it up. Thanks for watching.